what makes a VTuber model feel really smooth and alive actually starts before the rigging even begins. Hi, I'm Pitchy! Thank you so much for considering me as your new rigging mama. In my last video, I talked about standard versus advanced rigging, and a huge part of that comes down to how the model art is prepared. If your model art isn't set up right, even the best rigging won't reach its full potential. So today, let's fix that. More detailed art separation can feel overwhelming at first. When I first started rigging, I didn't even realize things that needed to be recut until I was already rigging them. So over time I built a checklist, and we're going to take a look at that today. We're going to break this into two parts, essentials and advanced. Essentials are things that I need for any model that I'm rigging, and advanced is how we can push things a little bit further. A quick note before we begin. This video is less about art style and more about the technical side of how your model is actually prepared. Any art style can be rigged and look amazing. These techniques just give me more control over how things move. This video is mainly for people who plan on commissioning me and want to understand how their model needs to be prepared so I can rig it. Everyone's rigging workflow and preferences are different. There's no one right way to cut models. These are just the things that I look for. That being said, please feel free to stick around. I still think there are some things you can glean from what I have to say. And if you'd like a full beginner guide on how to cut models, let me know. I'd love to make one. Okay, on to essentials. The number one thing I check for is the hands. For my rigging style, I ask that all fingers are separated and the palm of the hand is in its own layer. I don't need every joint to be separated, but the fingers should always be separated. If you commission model art, this is the easiest thing you can check right away. Your mouth line should always be drawn straight. Even if your character has a stylized mouth, like a cat mouth, I still need a straight base underneath. For my rigging style in particular, I always use a straight base to start with. Other riggers might approach this differently, but I feel like this gives me the most control. Without a neutral starting point, I can't properly push the mouth into different expressions like frowning or stretching. Tails should also be drawn straight. Just like the mouth, I need a neutral base to rig from. You can show how it's supposed to sit in your reference, but the riggable layers should be straight. We'll get into more detailed art separation for tails in the advanced section. The back of the hair needs to be drawn completely and cut thoroughly, probably more than you think. But Pitchy, no one's even going to see the back! Well, the moment the model's head turns, you'll be able to see more than you think. When the back of the hair isn't separated enough, it just kind of moves together as one big mass, and I think it breaks the illusion that the art is more three-dimensional. Anywhere there's a joint, there should be some separation. A really common miss is the top eyeline and the side eyeline. I can fix this with rigging magic, but for my workflow, it's always best if they're separated from the start. Clothing is where things get a little more nuanced. When creating model art, you have to think in 3D. Everything has a front and a back. Let's take a look at a hoodie as an example. We have the front panel, front sleeve, front collar. We also have a back panel, back sleeve, and a back collar. Basically, if it wraps around the body, it needs to exist in both front and the back of the model. Straps, belts, and anything that moves around the body needs a transition from front to back. And anything that moves independently, like laces or zippers, should always be on their own lane. Sometimes parts of clothing overhang and create a shadow. That shadow should also be on its own layer. This is true for face shadows and face blush too. So that's the essentials. But if you want your model to have even more depth, that's where advanced cutting comes in. The goal of advanced cutting is to make depth easier to achieve when the model is rigged. The more layer separation there is, the more control I have when rigging. Now, if your model isn't set up like that, that's okay. This is about giving me more control over the rig. If you follow the essentials, you should already have enough to make something that feels really fluid. For more advanced art separation, you'll want at least 3 layers for most things. This will be the line art layer, the texture layer, and the base. This lets me move, shade, and deform things independently. The base layer acts like a mask. This is where everything is built onto. Then, your texture layer sits on top and clips onto that base. So now, anything on the texture layer is contained within that shape. And finally, the line art sits on top and finishes the edges. And here's where it gets really cool. When the texture layer moves, but the line art stays in place, it creates a natural sense of depth. Instead of everything moving as one flat piece, you get this subtle separation that makes the model feel more 3D. That's the core idea behind advanced cutting. You're not adding more detail, but you're adding more control. It is possible to achieve depth with less separation, but in my experience, separating the layers like this makes it much more easy and much more flexible. Once again, this is sort of all personal preference though. Let's take a look at where we can apply this technique. And once you understand this, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Anything that needs to have a high level of rotation, like shirts, pants, or accessories on the legs, should have the texture layer separated from the base layer. This is what creates that subtle depth and movement without distorting the art too much. And the same principles will apply to tails. With advanced tails, we're not just bending them, we're giving them weight, volume, and flow. You can see here we're applying the same principles as before. We have the line art, the texture layer, and the base layer. So let's add on to our layer structure a little bit more. If you want something to shine, glow, or look reflective, it needs to be on its own layer. And the same thing goes for shadows or special textures. These will sit between your base layer and line art, so they can move independently and create depth. There are also more advanced techniques, like reverse clipping. Instead of textures being clipped to stay within a base layer, they are instead reverse clipped, so they will appear everywhere but the base layer. This lets us hide parts of the model art until the model moves in a certain way to reveal it. Which is how things like collars or chains can wrap around the body. This does get pretty technical, so I won't go too deep here, but it's another example of how detailed art separation gives us more control. So those are the biggest things I look for when preparing art for rigging. The more layer separation there is, the more control I have when rigging. And the more alive your model can feel. One final disclaimer, these are all just my personal opinions and personal preferences. And if you want me to be your new rigging mama, you can check out my website to get started. If your model art is already finished and you're not quite sure where it stands, I'll go over it and give you suggestions as part of my application process. I'm looking forward to working with you. If you like this video and you want a more beginner-friendly version, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.